The story of humanity is often told through empires, wars, and monuments, but it's also written in the threads that bind us. It begins not with a sword, but with a needle, a tool so fundamental, it predates our own species. To follow this thread is to uncover the very fabric of civilization. Our story begins not 25,000 years ago, but over 50,000 years ago, in a Siberian cave called Denisova. Here, archaeologists found a needle, carved from the bone of a large bird. It is slender, perfectly polished, with a meticulously drilled hole. This wasn't a crude tool, it was a piece of precision technology, likely created by our ancient cousins, the Denisovans. For these early humans, the needle was the key to survival. The climate was brutal. The ability to do more than just drape hides was the difference between life and death. Using an awl to punch guide holes, they used the backstitch, a technique that locks each stitch with the one before it, to create remarkably strong, wind-resistant seams. Threaded with dried animal sinew or tough plant fibers, these needles allowed for the creation of fitted multi-layered clothing, parkas, trousers, and boots, the world's first true technical gear. Let us now journey forward to the sun-drenched banks of the Nile. Ancient Egypt was built on flax. This single plant gave them food, oil, and most importantly, linen. The quality of linen was a direct reflection of social status. The coarse, rough linen of a farmer was a world away from the royal linen of the pharaohs, a fabric so fine it was almost transparent. Egyptian seamstresses were masters of their craft. They used slender copper or bronze needles and developed the flat-felled seam, a complex technique where the raw edges of the fabric are folded inward and stitched down, creating a smooth, chafe-free finish ideal for their hot climate. For the elite, garments were intricately pleated. These pleats were not ironed, but set by hand into wet linen using grooved wooden boards and a starch paste. Sewing was also integral to their beliefs about eternity. The intricate linen wrappings of the mummified dead were sealed with precise stitches, preserving the body for its journey into the afterlife. The scene shifts to the disciplined, sprawling Roman Empire. Rome was a military machine, and its army marched on the strength of its seams. The needle here was iron, a tool of industry and conquest. The Roman military understood logistics, and that included textile production. Specialized workshops, known as gynecia, were established to produce and repair uniforms. The common soldier's tunic was of thick wool assembled with the incredibly durable saddle stitch method using two needles passing through the same hole from opposite directions, creating a seam that would not unravel even if one thread broke. This same stitch was used on everything from leather armor segments, known as teruges, to the vast canvas tents that housed the legions. But sewing also signified status. A senator's toga, a single, enormous piece of wool, was a carefully constructed garment. Its iconic folds were not random. They were held in place by discreet, almost invisible slip stitches, a tailor's secret that projected an aura of effortless power. We now cross continents to Han Dynasty China, where a single insect, the silkworm, would change the world. The Chinese guarded the secret of sericulture, the cultivation of silkworms for their thread, for millennia. This monopoly gave them immense economic power. The silk thread, finer and stronger than any other fiber, allowed for the creation of the finest steel needles and the most exquisite embroidery the world had ever seen. This was the birth of luxury. In imperial workshops, artisans mastered a dizzying array of techniques. They used the satin stitch to create smooth, glossy fields of color, and the peaking knot, also known as the forbidden stitch, to create tiny, textured dots that gave their work a granular, three-dimensional quality. These were not mere decorations. They were complex narratives of mythology and power, and their value by weight surpassed that of gold, fueling the legendary Silk Road. Meanwhile, across the Pacific, the civilizations of the Americas were writing their own history in thread. In the Andes, needles of cactus thorn and polished bone worked with the incredibly soft wool of alpacas. Andean weavers were masters of the backstrap loom, a simple but versatile device tied to their own body, which allowed them to create textiles of astonishing complexity. In the Aztec Empire, cotton was king. It was spun, dyed with brilliant natural colors like cochineal red, and woven into panels. These panels were then joined using a decorative whipstitch, turning a functional seam into a vibrant part of the garment's design, a public declaration of the wearer's lineage and devotion to the gods. After the fall of Rome, European clothing remained simple for centuries, largely T-shaped tunics for both men and women. But in the 14th century, a revolution began. This was the birth of tailoring as we know it. In the growing towns and cities, powerful tailors' guilds were formed. These guilds controlled the craft, establishing a rigorous 7-year apprenticeship. An apprentice learned to master the needle before becoming a journeyman, and eventually, a master tailor who could open his own shop. This system protected trade secrets and enforced incredibly high standards. The great innovation was the shift from draping fabric to pattern cutting. Master tailors became architects of cloth, using chalk to draw complex shapes onto expensive wool broadcloth, which were then cut with massive shears. The true breakthrough was the set-in sleeve, a separately cut piece of fabric precisely fitted into a curved armhole. This allowed for unprecedented movement and a close fit to the body. To achieve this fit, tailors perfected the use of darts to curve fabric around the bust and waist, and gauze, triangular inserts, to add flair to skirts and coats. The invention of the functional buttonhole stitch allowed for rows of buttons to tightly close a garment, creating the iconic, body-hugging silhouettes of the late Middle Ages and Renaissance. A master tailor didn't just sew, he sculpted, using padding, interfacing, and a deep understanding of geometry to transform a flat piece of cloth into a three-dimensional form that broadcasted the wearer's wealth and status. This world of painstaking handcraft was about to be upended. The Industrial Revolution did not just invent machines, it reinvented the needle itself. The breakthrough was moving the hole from the blunt end to the point. This, combined with the invention of the lockstitch, a mechanism using a second thread from a bobbin to lock each stitch in place, unleashed a torrent of innovation. Elias Howe's sewing machine, patented in 1846, could outstitch the fastest seamstress many times over. This invention democratized fashion. For the first time, ready-to-wear clothing became affordable for the masses. It also created new forms of labor, from the factory floor to the home sewer. The world was suddenly, and irrevocably, stitched together by the relentless rhythm of the machine. From a 50,000-year-old piece of bone to a mechanized marvel of steel, the needle's journey is our own. It is a humble tool that has allowed us to survive, to create beauty, to build empires, and to dream. It is the thread that connects every generation, every culture, and every corner of human history.